Welcome back to our channel. The song by Perry Como became the first gold record in 1958. However, he detested it all. The startling reality now becomes apparent. In private, he wished for a totally different career, avoided recording sessions, and deemed his biggest songs garbage. This is America's most reluctant superstar's dark side, from the $25 million TV agreement that ensnared him to the studio executive who attempted to ruin him. The story of Perry Como is one of those that seems almost too good to be true. Born in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, on May 18, 1912, he was the seventh child of a family of Italian immigrants. It wasn't until he started school that he learned English because his parents primarily spoke Italian at home. He would go on to sing to millions of people across America with such ease that it is difficult to imagine now. Though there was no money for extravagances like singing lessons, music was always present in the home. Despite the family's limited financial resources, his father, a mill worker with a strong passion for music, made sure all of his kids learned to play an instrument. He once spent $3, a significant sum at the time, on a used organ. Playing songs by ear, little Perry, who was only old enough to walk, would pump the bellows and press the keys. He learned nothing. The present was all he had. Como started working by the time he was 10 years old. He took a work before and after school at a neighborhood barbershop, where he made a meager 50 cents per week. He became proficient at the work fast and loved it. Although he had to stand on a box to get to his customers, he acquired his own chair by the age of 13. He never grumbled about the difficult life he led. Then everything changed when he was 14 years old. His father became unable to work due to a severe cardiac problem. Como was forced to provide the money the family needed. The strain would have caused most teenagers to crumble, but Como handled it like a man twice his age. At the age of 14, he launched his own barbershop, which was practically unprecedented. His abilities were highly sought after, and he soon established himself as one of the area's top barbers. However, the haircuts weren't the only thing that drew customers in. Como loved to sing while working, and his patrons enjoyed it. Before long, the local Greek families referred to him as the wedding barber. He sang for the grooms as well as groomed them. In the late 1920s, his business was so successful that he was earning $125 a week, which was a substantial sum of money. He could have become a prosperous barber for the rest of his life, but destiny had other ideas. He was asked to try out in 1933 by Freddie Carlin, the leader of a local band. Como decided to give professional singing a shot even though he had never given it much thought. He was hired, and at the age of 21, he made a decision that took everyone by surprise. To pursue a career in music, he left up his barbershop and reliable source of money. It was not simple. He made only $28 a week traveling with the band for 5 years, which was much less than what he made as a barber. He never felt bad about it, though. Perry Como made a significant professional move in 1936 at the age of 24. After joining Ted Weems' orchestra, he was able to earn a respectable $50 a week, or roughly $1,000 in today's currency. There was an issue, even if it was a big opportunity. He was perceived as sounding too much like the already hugely successful Bing Crosby. Rather than applauding Como's skill, many wrote him off as a copy. A recording session with Decca Records in 1937 made matters worse. While the band was performing, a Decca executive barged into the recording session. He was mad. Weems should get rid of that youngster, he said. Because he had too much Crosby's voice. That might have been Como's career-ending moment if Weems had paid attention. However, Weems declined. He informed the executive that the recording would not be made if Como was not included. It was a clear message, but Como stayed. Finding his own voice was essential if he hoped to pursue a career in music. The criticism persisted. Who broadcast the Weems Orchestra's performances, threatened to cancel the program if Como didn't stop becoming better. He sat down as Weems played recordings of their previous broadcasts. Como gasped. He became aware that his communication was frequently ambiguous and that he was not engaging the audience as he had believed. Weems gave him counsel at that point that he carried with him throughout his life. Don't put in so much effort. Put an end to your vocal tricks. And simply perform from the heart. Como heeded that counsel, gradually establishing the effortless, fluid technique that would lead to his fame. However, success took time to achieve. All that changed in 1942. When World War II broke out, Weems and many of his musicians joined the Merchant Marines, which led to the dissolution of the Ted Weems Orchestra. Como's employment abruptly ended. He was married, 30 years old, and had a little boy to provide for. He considered giving up music since he had no obvious future in it. Como worked as a barber before becoming a singer. And now he was considering returning to it. He even contacted his former barbershop in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, to inquire about being accepted back. They gladly did. Como was also torn for weeks. He had had some success with music, but barbering was stable and dependable. He even rehearsed his talents on family members and friends in order to get ready for what felt like the next phase of his life. He received a call from RCA Victor just as he was ready to hang up the microphone for good. His signing was their goal. The deal included radio appearances, which meant actual visibility, and a consistent salary. Como took the deal after discussing it with his wife. He made the decision to give music one final try. That decision altered everything. Till the End of Time, a song based on a Chopin theme, was recorded by him 2 years later, in 1945. All of the studio members realized it was something extraordinary as soon as he completed recording. The music came out at the perfect moment. World War II was coming to a close. And individuals sought normalcy and hope. The single soared to the top of the charts and remained there for 10 weeks. His first gold record, it sold more than 1 million copies. Como would subsequently remark that his admirers should give RCA Victor credit for preventing them from having haircuts rather than popular tunes. The seemingly straightforward song Catch a Falling Star, which Como debuted in 1957, turned become a huge smash. More than 1.4 million copies were sold in less than a month. For any artist, that was extraordinary, but Como was 46 years old at the time. The charts were dominated by younger performers, but he made it seem simple. The song was then certified a gold record by the RIAA in 1958, making it the first ever to do so. The inaugural Grammy for Best Male Pop Vocal Performance was given to it a year later. Como's classic approach was still able to enthrall millions of people during a period when rock and roll was gaining control. Catch a Falling Star was the #1 single in the US, but Magic Moments, another song on the same album, was a hit in the UK. For 8 weeks in a row, it remained at the top. Few musicians were able to simultaneously have successes on both sides of the Atlantic, but Como managed it without any gimmicks or flair. A string of innovative successes that Como recorded in the 1950s and early 1960s dominated the charts. There were tunes like Hoop Da Da, Dog Ziggity Boom, Papa Loves Mambo, and Hot Diggity all over the place. They were irresistible, fun, and infectious. Hot Diggity reached #1 on the Billboard charts twice during its 21-week run. It brought Como a gold record and sold more than 1 million copies. In close pursuit was Papa Loves Mambo. More than 500,000 copies were sold, and it peaked at #4. During the post-war era, when people were looking for cheerful amusement, these songs were ideal. Como was not pleased, though. For ballads and refined pop, his smooth baritone voice was ideal. Those were the tunes he wanted to be renowned for, not his songs about mambo and hot diggity dogs. The public, however, desired more of the humorous, enjoyable songs. His career was consistently defined by novelty singles, regardless of the number of serious songs he recorded. He had trouble being taken seriously in comparison to vocalists like Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra. In 1958, this difference was evident. Como released Magic Moments and Catch a Falling Star, 2 significant hits. Catch a Falling Star was a light-hearted and fun game. It was his 14th and last #1 single, the first to earn him a Grammy for Best Male Vocal Performance, and the first to receive an RIAA Gold certification. Magic Moments, penned by Burt Bacharach, sounded more elegant. Although many people thought it was the better song, it only peaked at #4. This recurred repeatedly. Hot Diggity, one of his greatest successes, peaked at #1 for 2 weeks in 1956. His more somber tracks were disregarded in the interim. Getting what his record label wanted was more of an issue than what the general audience loved. He later acknowledged that Como was forced to record these songs. "I only sang them because RCA insisted they would sell," he remarked, calling many of them garbage. The recording sessions revealed the frustration. According to his other musicians, he detested performing these tunes. After entering the studio and doing 1 or 2 takes, he would hasten his departure. He appeared as though he had just bitten into a lemon, one session player said. However, he no longer liked them as a result. He attempted to make a difference in 1961. His album, Broadway Standards, which he regarded as some of his best work, was released. His novelty singles sold far better than this one. The people were already decided. For better or worse, Perry Como was the laid-back crooner of light-hearted, catchy tunes. He considered his career in an interview conducted in 1998. "My house and my children's college expenses were covered by those tunes, so I can't really complain. But rather than crooning about Cupid dolls and hot diggity dogs, I would have chosen to sing the Great American Songbook for the entirety of my career if I had my way." His professional life was an odd paradox. Even though millions of people loved him, he felt stuck. Through his own accomplishments. The songs that prevented him from receiving the full recognition were the same ones that made him a legend. Even now, the first thing that comes to mind when someone thinks of Perry Como is his pleasant, enjoyable tunes. But beneath it all was a creative person who aspired to achieve greater recognition. His television career was equally impressive. 1948 to 1963 was the run of The Perry Como Show, rising to prominence as one of the era's most watched variety shows. During the 1956 to 1957 season, it was the only NBC program to place in the top 10 Nielsen ratings. His easygoing demeanor won over audiences, and he had a way of making them feel as though he was singing specifically for them. Como sat on a stool in one of the show's most cherished segments, "Sing to Me, Mr. C," executing requests for songs from the audience. It made all the difference since it was straightforward but intimate. Como also contributed to the development of television history. One of the first weekly shows to be aired in color was his program in September 1956. Como had gained the trust of networks, who wouldn't take such chances unless they had faith in a star's capacity to attract viewers. He also had a fun element to his presentation. The appearance of actor Kirk Douglas as a guest in 1955 was one of the most talked about events. For his part as Vincent Van Gogh in Lust for Life, Douglas had grown a beard, which he allowed Como to shave off live on television rather than in private. It was a spontaneous, humorous event that generated weeks of conversation among viewers. Como's laid-back manner became controversial. Some were impressed by his easy, serene charm. Others felt that he was too slow and relaxed. "I'm Walking in My Sleep" should be Como's theme song, comedian Jerry Lewis once said, but if people thought he was being lazy, they were mistaken. He didn't act his way. He was just that, him. A survey by Life magazine in 1956 asked young ladies who they believed would be the perfect husband. The victor was neither a politician nor a Hollywood star. It was Perry Como. Despite the fast-paced, high-energy celebrity culture of today, he stood out for his kindness and calm presence. Behind the scenes, the same relaxed attitude persisted. He made his show a light-hearted and enjoyable place to be. And that resulted in a few memorable instances. The appearance of Olympic swimmer and actress Esther Williams in 1957 was one of the most well-known. A clothing issue during the performance almost became a big TV scandal. Como remained composed. Instead, he only grinned, said, "Good night, everyone," and dove fully clothed into the swimming pool that was constructed for Williams's performance. It was the ideal way to wind down at night. Perry Como and Kraft Foods inked a record-breaking contract in 1959. At $25 million, the contract was the biggest ever paid to a television talent. He switched to Wednesday evenings and hosted Perry Como's Kraft Music Hall weekly for the following 4 years. Subsequently, the program evolved into a monthly special that alternated with other shows such as Andy Williams' Show and Kraft Theater. Como didn't manage business affairs on his own. Ron Com, his production firm, handled everything, including selecting what broadcast during his summer vacations. Viewers could still see him while he was away because To Perry Presents, a unique series that debuted in 1959. The Cuban Missile Crisis was over by the end of 1962. And the ultimate permission to bring American servicemen's families back to Guantanamo Bay. Como was invited by Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara to bring his act to the base in order to boost morale. After agreeing, Como became the first performer to come since the crisis. Filming for 8 days, he and his team captured the thrill of the returning families. On December 12, 1962, the program was broadcast. And had many special moments. In the meantime, Perry Como's Hollywood-style appearance helped him land a 7-year deal with 20th Century Fox in 1943. However, his appearance was insufficient to make him a cinematic star. Something for the Boys, March of Time, Doll Face, and If I'm Lucky are the 4 movies he produced for the studio. He also starred in MGM's Words and Music. He never felt comfortable in front of the camera, even though there were plenty of chances. He was aware that he didn't match the positions. Because Hollywood is Hollywood, some people sought to change his life story. After deciding that coal miner sounded more dramatic than barber, a press agent attempted to promote that version to the general public. Como would have none of it. The barber angle was referred to as a publicity trick by Fred Othman, a skeptic columnist. Therefore, Como sat him down at the barbershop in Fox Studios and gave him a haircut and a genuine shave. That was resolved. His first film set experience further strengthened his misgivings about the business. For 2 weeks, he sat in his dressing room without being called after reporting for work on something for the boys. He continued to wait while playing golf for the next 2 weeks. 5 weeks passed before the studio truly needed him. The director was unaware of his identity when he eventually entered the set. It was Hollywood. The popularity of musical films was already waning by the time Como signed. He was only another contract player who filled in when needed. Nothing improved, not even when he got a role in one of MGM's major productions, Words and Music. The script was incredibly negligent. Even before the film ended, the name of his character was changed from Eddie Anders to Perry Como. Columnist Walter Winchell criticized it in print less than 2 weeks before to its publication, claiming that it must have been written by someone at MGM who was asleep. Como required no further evidence. When he requested to be released from his contract, MGM granted it. He said, "I was a waste of their time. And they were squandering my money." When Como performed the Chesterfield Supper Club on television and radio in 1949, he accurately foresaw why he would never again require Hollywood. "I'm going to benefit personally from television far more than I have from movies. It should be clear why. I am free to be myself on TV. I was always another guy in images. I arrive as if I were just another tuxedo-wearing jerk." And he was correct. Later, offers for movie parts arrived, but he was too preoccupied with TV to be concerned. In Chartiers Creek, Pennsylvania, Roselle Bellin and Perry Como met at a picnic. He was 21 years old and employed as a barber. She didn't realize at the age of 19 that she was going to meet the love of her life. Como was attracted to her right away, so he did what he did best. He performed a song. You don't realize how much the song was. And it was successful. Their relationship was easy. Their story of love started suddenly. In Meadville, Pennsylvania, on July 31, 1933, they were married. The initial years were difficult. Como and his band traveled frequently, and finances were never plentiful. They saved every dime they could and lived in tiny apartments. We experienced some hardship. Despite the lack of money, we remained thrifty and survived off of his earnings. They remained united in the face of every obstacle. They already had a strong love, but fame would follow. Roselle remained anonymous as Como's career flourished. The demands of celebrity were shielded from their family by her. At home, he was just Harry, yet he rose to become a national figure. Almost unheard of in Hollywood, their marriage lasted an amazing 65 years. Days before their anniversary in 1998, Roselle spoke of her husband with the same affection she had shown him from the beginning. "He was and remains the most kind and modest man I have ever encountered." Beyond love, they had more in common. Their families were immigrants. They were grounded by their principles and had a strong Catholic faith. A constant in Como's life was faith. His profession was influenced by his upbringing in a devout Catholic home. He never wavered from his moral principles, unlike many in Hollywood. He led a tranquil life away from work and stayed out of scandals. He rose to prominence in America during the 1940s and 1950s. Despite all of the success, he remained loyal to himself. Como and Roselle took a trip to Italy in 1958 to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary. They met with Pope Pius XII in private during the trip. Como anticipated that the moment would remain secret, but the Vatican press office made pictures available to the public. His anger sprang from his desire to never use his faith as a means of gaining attention, not from a desire to conceal it. Faith was a personal matter to him. He never felt the need to make it public, but it informed his decisions. He was unusual from most celebs because of his modest demeanor. He declined opportunities that did not align with his principles. He preferred privacy to fame. He ensured that a Catholic church would be his place of burial after retiring to Florida. He stuck to what really mattered, even in death. The year 1998 was a turning point. Roselle died a few days after their anniversary on August 12. Como was distraught. For 65 years, she had been by his side. He lost his sense of direction in her absence. He avoided public life and hardly ever left his Jupiter, Florida, home. Once a yearly event, his Christmas specials had already ceased in 1994. When Roselle left, he declined all invitations to come back. The spotlight was irrelevant now. His condition started to deteriorate. His family did not disclose that he had Alzheimer's. They respected the fact that he was always a private man. In his sleep, he died on May 12, 2001. Almost his 89th birthday. Although his loved ones thought he never really recovered from losing Roselle, the official cause was natural. Perry Como had a warm, easy, and silky voice that was familiar. He was more than a singer. In entertainment, he was a presence, a composed and solid figure. Not just because he sang well, people tuned in to hear him, but because he gave them a positive feeling. There aren't many connections like that. He received some of the greatest honors in television history, and his career lasted for decades because of it. Como was the dominant force in the Emmy Awards in the late 1950s. In 1955, he won Best Male Singer for the first time, defeating Eddie Fisher and Frank Sinatra. 1 year later, he accomplished something even more remarkable. He took home 2 Emmys in one night, one for Best Variety Series and one for Best Male Personality. Almost never did a double triumph like that occur. 1957 then arrived. 54.2 million people, or almost 1/3 of the nation, watched his show. The ensuing Emmys seemed inevitable. The competition became more intense by 1958. Television was dominated by Jackie Gleason, and their shows frequently competed with one another in the ratings. Nevertheless, Como prevailed. In 1959, he won another Emmy, making it his 5th straight year of success. That was a first for a male performer. For more than 3 decades, his record remained unbeaten. Como had a unique year in 1956 for reasons other than accolades, but because of their intent. He was the first well-known singer to get the Christopher Award, which is often bestowed upon serious artistic creations, in February of that year. The prize honored his Christmas Eve performance of Ave Maria, which affected millions of people. A few months later, he and Jackie Gleason split a Peabody Award. This had never been done. Peabody Awards were not typically given out, and certainly not by 2 performers engaged in direct rivalry. The committee, however, thought they were unique. Both were meticulous. Both had the highest expectations for their performances. And they maintained their friendship in spite of their rivalry. In order to giggle about the ratings competition, they frequently called one another after their programs. Como had spent almost 30 years in semi-retirement by 1990. However, his influence on television had remained constant. He was admitted into the Television Hall of Fame that year, joining luminaries such as Lucille Ball and Walt Disney. His induction was approved by every single member of the voting committee, which had never happened before. Surrounded by titans of the business, Como gave a succinct 90-second acceptance speech at the ceremony. It had never been his style to brag about himself. He helped create the variety show format and made television more comfortable and friendly, according to the Hall of Fame committee. They also mentioned his contributions to the transformation of the sector. Como was among the first entertainers to pre-record their performances, a practice that eventually spread. His 1987 Kennedy Center honor was one of the highest accolades of his career. He was the oldest recipient that year, at 75. Alvin Ailey and Betty Davis were among the select club that he joined. First Lady Nancy Reagan and President Ronald Reagan attended the ceremony. No tribute portion had ever been like Como's. Instead of only performing his songs, producers recreated his famous double prime portion, "Sing to Me, Mr. C." 50 years of memories were read aloud from fan letters. Although the occasion overtook him, Frank Sinatra's arrival on stage was the night's biggest surprise. People have been comparing their styles and saw them as competitors for years. Few anticipated what Sinatra would confess that evening. The casual charm of Como had always made him a little envious. With a standing ovation, the homage came to a close. Perry Como never sought notoriety. His ability to make everything appear simple, even when it wasn't, attracted people to him. His accolades were stunning, but they merely confirmed what his supporters had long suspected. He had a unique personality.